Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully you guys are having a great Monday. Got lots of NHL news to discuss, so make sure that you stay tuned in to the end of this episode. Before we go ahead and get started, just a couple of announcements and the schedule of what the Hockey Talk TG Podcast will look like ahead of the Olympic break. For those that don't know, the NHL Olympic break will be starting next Wednesday, February the 11th. Well, actually, that's the start of the NHL Olympic games that will come on. So next Wednesday, February 11th, will be the start of the NHL Olympics. And I just wanted to share a schedule and a couple of announcements for what the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast will look like before the Olympic break. So Wednesday, February the 4th, this Wednesday, at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time will be the NHL Olympic roster freeze, which means that NHL teams can no longer make trades from this point, which kind of acts like a mini trade deadline almost. And this will end on Sunday, February the 22nd at 10:59 p.m. Central Time. The freeze is lifted at the conclusion of the NHL Olympics. Now, for those who are wondering, what is the roster freeze? I have never heard of this before. The NHL roster freeze kind of basically means that no trades can be completed between these 2 days. So on February 4th, so between February 4th and February the 22nd, NHL teams can no longer make trades between those times because of the NHL Olympics. And that also means that NHL teams can no longer send their players down to the minors during that time. So let's say, since I'm a Blackhawks fan, that the Blackhawks are going to send Artyom Leshastov down to the minors to work on his improvement. He actually had a bad game against Pittsburgh the other night. But let's say the Blackhawks are going to send Artyom Leshastov down to Rockford to improve his game or so. If they wouldn't be able to do that on February the 8th because that will be during the NHL Olympics, so they wouldn't be able to do that. They will have to do it either before that time or after that time. The NHL Olympics is from February 11th through February the 22nd. February 23rd and 24th is a 2-day off from the Olympic break, so NHL players will be returning back to their respective teams from Milan. And then on February 25th, the NHL games will be back in action, which there will be only 50 days left of the NHL season at that time. By the way, to those who did not know that, April the 16th, I believe, will be the last day of the NHL season. And then on Saturday, April the 18th, will be the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, I just wanted to share about that. There will be an episode out on Tuesday. There will be an episode out on Thursday. So 2 episodes out for this week. And then next Tuesday, February the 10th, it will be a preview episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast for the NHL Olympics. This Thursday, February the 5th, will be the final day before the Olympic break that NHL games will be in action. And then from Friday, February the 6th to Tuesday, February the 10th, there will be no games during that time. Then Wednesday, February 11th, will be the start of the NHL Olympics. And it will run from there all the way to Sunday, February the 22nd. And then NHL teams will resume back in action on Wednesday, February the 25th. I will say all of this again at the end of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast because I know I just gave out a bunch of information about that. So I will say it again at the end of the Hockey Talk TG Podcast. I might also say it again for on Thursday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. So this won't be the only time I'll be saying it as well, because I know that was a lot of information right there. And also make sure that you guys like and subscribe to the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast YouTube channel. Make sure to follow the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Episodes come out every Tuesday and Thursday now from 1 o'clock p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Time, and then 2 o'clock p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But I'm just doing the episode now because I wanted to talk about the NHL Stadium Series games that happened on Sunday between the Bruins and Lightning. But yeah, make sure to follow Hockey Talk TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, so you can stay up to date on the latest episode of the Hockey Talk TG Podcast and the latest hockey news going around the league. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into the NHL news for today. So, as I briefly just mentioned, I want to talk about the 2026 NHL Stadium Series game between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Boston Bruins. It was a 6-5 shootout win for the Tampa Bay Lightning over the Boston Bruins. Jake Guentzel with the lone shootout game-winning goal, and Tampa Bay improves to 35-14-4 the season. They won 3 in a row, and they're 17-1-1 in their past 19 games. And this was a historic win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They erased a 5-1 deficit, so they were down 5-1 in this game, and then they came all the way back and won 6-5 in the shootout, marking the largest comeback in NHL outdoor game history, and the biggest comeback, I would say, for the Tampa Bay Lightning in their franchise history. They also tied for the highest scoring outdoor history game, in which tied the 2024 Stadium Series, which was between the Rangers and the Islanders, which also resulted in a 6-5 victory. Only difference was that was an overtime victory and not a shootout victory. But what a Stadium Series game yesterday between the Bruins and the Lightning. It had everything that a hockey fan wanted for it, from goals to scrimmage to a goalie fight between Jeremy Swayman and Andrei Vasilevsky. This was absolute cinema from top to bottom. Unreal. And this was the 45th outdoor game in franchise history, and the first being in Tampa Bay. I really wish I was at this game because this was way better than the 2026 NHL Winter Classic that was in January between the Panthers and the Rangers. Why couldn't we see that at the Winter Classic? And I was at that Winter Classic game, by the way, between the Panthers and the Rangers. And I wish we could have saw some of the same stuff that we saw in the Stadium Series yesterday in the Winter Classic game between the Panthers and the Rangers. But unfortunately, we didn't. We did see Mika Zibanejad get his first outdoor game hat trick, first being in outdoor game history. So that was one good part of it, but we missed a whole bunch of action that we saw from the Stadium Series game. Victor Hedman made his return to the lineup for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He has been out since December. He missed the last 22 games for the Lightning because of a elbow surgery, and fortunately, he didn't score in this game. He did have 2 shots on goal, finished with a -1 rating in 10 minutes and 18 seconds of time on ice. And speaking of Tampa Bay Lightning defenseman, Ryan McDonagh, he is now 6-0-0 in outdoor games in his career. He's had 2 wins with the Lightning and 4 wins with the Rangers, the most wins of any skater or goaltender in outdoor game history. Again, it's just a lot to talk about from this game. I'm trying not to be repetitive. I'm trying to say more. But it was just a lot to discuss. Like, this was a unreal game. Nikita Kucherov, he had a star-studded night for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He had a goal and 3 assists for a 4.9. He had the game-tying goal in the game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That goal coming in the third period with a rocket of a one-timer shot that blows by past Jeremy Swayman for the game-time goal. And then Brandon Hagel, he had a goal and 2 assists for a 3.9. Brandon Hagel's goal came 11 seconds into this game, which is the fastest goal by a player in outdoor game history. Colby Armstrong, before this happened, Colby Armstrong had held the record in which he scored 21 seconds into an outdoor game in franchise history. And now Braden Hagel takes control of that with scoring 11 seconds into this one in the Stadium Series for the fastest goal in an outdoor game in NHL history. Darren Radish, he had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. He extends his goal streak to 4 games, setting a new franchise record for a defenseman. Oliver Bjorkstrand also scored for the Lightning in this one, while Andre Vasilevsky made 29 saves on 34 shots faced in net. He's now 14-0-1 in his past 15 starts. Anthony Cirelli, he did lead this game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He sustained a upper body injury in the first period after a hit by Boston forward Mark Kastelic with 1:44 seconds remaining, and he did not return. I haven't heard any update on the situation yet. But the biggest highlight of the Stadium Series was the goalie fight, as I mentioned earlier, between Andre Vasilevsky and Jeremy Swayman. This was unreal, and I'm just going to show this to you guys. For those who are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. For those listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, you'll be able to hear it. But I'm going to turn it up loud so you guys will be able to hear it, and I'll show it to the people who are watching on YouTube. So check out this goalie fight. I thought I had it. Let me see. Yeah, check out this goalie fight right here between Jeremy Swayman and Andre Vasilevsky.
That's Hagel in
This
front
is
of the net
unreal.
again. Swayman is hot. Vasilevsky's coming out across the center ice.
Look at this.
Vasilevsky may go.
I did not expect this from yesterday's game in the Stadium Series.
This is crazy.
This was unreal. Like, I don't think I've never seen a goalie fight in an outdoor game before until now. Like, this is crazy.
And then he recognizes Vasilevsky. Look, he's got that stick stuck in his pads. Vasilevsky's going to wait for him to lose the stick. They get their gloves off. Vasilevsky starts with the left. Swayman's going to finish with the right. These are the top two teams.
That is crazy.
It was just roughing and a scrub.
That is crazy. That was an unreal game. And that was my best moment of the night right there. Everybody started talking about that on social media. I even filmed a reaction video of me reacting to the goalie fight in the Stadium Series yesterday. Like, that blew the roof off of Raymond James Stadium. Like, whether you were a Lightning fan, whether you were a Brewers fan, whether you were a casual hockey fan, whether you're a huge hockey fan like myself, or just a hockey fan in general, you had to love that fight and game in the Stadium Series yesterday. That goalie fight was unreal. Like I said, I don't think I've never seen a goalie fight in an outdoor game before. So that one caught me off guard. I was not expecting that. I know we had a goalie fight earlier on in the season. That was between Sergei Bobrovsky and Alex Nedeljkovic, but that was an indoor game, the Sharks and Panthers at Amex Bank Arena. But a goalie fight in an outdoor game? Like, come on now. Like, but yeah, that was my highlight of the night. Even some people say the Lightning making this huge comeback win was their highlight of the night. But my highlight of the night was that goalie fight right there between Jeremy Swayman and Andre Vasilevsky. And I would have asked Andre Vasilevsky or Jeremy Swayman, either or, what was said in that handshake line between the two of you. Like, you had a fight afterwards. Did you have what was said in that handshake line? Like, that would be my first. Well, actually, that would be a follow-up question. My first question would have been, since I'm a sports journalist, yes, I am a journalism sports media major student in college. For those who did not know that, but my first question would have been, how did you enjoy the goalie fight? Like, what did you think of the goalie fight that you had with Andre Vasilevsky, or if I was asking Andre Vasilevsky this question. What did you think of the goalie fight between you and Jeremy Swayman? That would have been my first question. Then I would have asked the follow-up question. What words were said in that handshake line between the two of you? Like, what was said? Like, any harsh words, any good words? Did you guys, like, high-five one another? Did you guys, like, threw it under the, I can't think of the expression, like, did you burn it under the bridges at that point? Like, what was said in that handshake line? Because I kind of imagine, like, they had a short kind of talk in that handshake line after yesterday's shootout victory between the Lightning and the Bruins, when the Lightning won in the shootout. So I could imagine they were having a short conversation about that goalie fight and just about the game in general. For the Bruins, Morgan Geekie, he had 2 goals and assist rate 3.9. He's up to 32 goals of the season. He's playing unreal hockey now for the Boston Bruins. And he's almost tied his career high with the Bruins. He had 33 goals last season for the Bruins. He's on pace for 45, I would probably say like 40, 45 goals this season for Boston. Like, it's just unreal. Like, he is a secondary scoring asset for the Boston Bruins, and he's just playing like unreal hockey in Boston. He extends his point streak to 7 games. In the process, he has 11 points during the span, 7 goals, 4 assists for 11 points in 7 games for Morgan Geekie. Charlie McAvoy, he also extends his point streak to 6 games, in which he has 9 points during the span, 1 goal, 8 assists for 9 points in 6 games. Alex Steve, Victor Arvidsson, and Matthew Patras had the other goals for the Bruins. Victor Arvidsson's goal ended up being a power play goal. Jeremy Swayman made 41 saves on 46 shots faced the net. And an interesting fact that I would like to point out, Marco Sturm, who's the Bruins head coach, by the way, he became the first person to have played and coached in the outdoor NHL game in NHL history. He scored the overtime game-winning goal in the Bruins' 2-1 overtime win over the Flyers at the 2010 NHL Winter Classic at Fenway Park in Boston. He hosted 2 outdoor games before in Boston, 2010 and in 2023 at Fenway Park for both Winter Classic games. For the Bruins, this was a penalty-filled game. They actually had 25 penalty minutes in this game. They took 11 penalties overall, and they were 5 for 8 on the penalty kill, just allowing 3 power play goals from the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I thought this was going to be a 6-5 overtime win for the Boston Bruins, and I'm pretty sure every other Bruins fan thought so as well. David Pastrnak did appear to have scored and won the game in overtime for the Boston Bruins, but the goal did not count. He was called for a slashing penalty on that, which was a late play by the referees. David Pastrnak was upset. The Bruins were upset. The fans were upset. And if I was a Bruins fan, I would be upset too, because if you were going to call that a penalty, that should have been blown early ahead of time. Not wait until David Pastrnak scores and then you say, oh, we're not going to count this for you because this was a penalty. Why didn't you blow the whistle before he scored the goal, referee? To the ref who called the penalty. Why didn't you blow the whistle then? Because, like I said, if I was a Bruins fan, which I'm not, I'm a Blackhawks fan, but if I was a Bruins fan, I would have been upset and pissed at that call. Because I don't understand, why didn't you call this ahead of time? You had everybody thinking that the Bruins had won the game. The Bruins fans were going crazy at home. And if you were at Raymond James Stadium for the game, you were probably going crazy at the game too. Thought that you won in overtime. But the referee had other plans for that. Like, if I was playing for the Boston Bruins, and if that were me in that situation, I would be very upset and livid at that call. If I was a Bruins fan, I would be upset at that call because I don't understand, why didn't you blow it ahead of time and wait until after, David Pastrnak scores. But it is what it is. But despite the loss, the Bruins extend their point streak to 6 games, which they are 4-0-2 during the span. They're 32-20-4 of the season. They currently hold the first place wild card spot. And my overall thoughts on the Stadium Series before I wrap up this segment on the for this segment on the Hockey Talk 2 podcast, just my overall thoughts on this. I mean, this was unreal. This was a star-studded night and a memorial game to remember. I'm so glad I recorded this game, by the way, because like I said, I couldn't be at the Stadium Series game in Tampa. I wanted to, but unfortunately I couldn't. I was at the Winter Classic game in Miami, and it was no better than this Stadium Series that we saw on Sunday night between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Boston Bruins. Like I said, I wanted to be at this game, but due to the winter snowstorms, I couldn't make it to the game. So I had to watch the game at home. But just watching it at home or being at the game, this was unreal. A memorial night for every hockey fan that was at the game live or watching the game at home. It had everything, and I mean everything that you would want for a hockey game. It had goals. It was a high-scoring game, 6-5 shootout win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. It had scrums. It was a couple scrums in the game, including after when Oliver Bjorkstrand had that power play goal, Mark Kastler cross-checked him, and then it drew scrums. And there were a bunch of scrums in this game, and one that I was certainly not expecting to happen, a goalie fight in the Stadium Series game between Jeremy Swayman and Andrei Vasilevsky. The second goalie fight of the season, the second goalie fight of 2026. This was a memorial night in Tampa Bay. Like I said, I wish we could have got at least some of this at the NHL Winter Classic game, and unfortunately we didn't. But what an event in Tampa Bay. What a game that they had. And the NHL did a really good job at pulling this off. Like the format of this, the design of this. This was unreal. This was unreal. And hockey in Florida is certainly growing, especially with the success that the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning have had over the past couple of years, going to Stanley Cup Finals, winning Stanley Cups. So this was a unreal game. I really enjoyed every last bit of it. And like I said, I'm glad I recorded it. I hope NHL uploads this as a full game somewhere in the off season so that hockey fans can go back and take a look at this game on this Memorial Night. They've been uploading full games, previous games past before on their YouTube channel. Hopefully they upload this as a full game, because I will want to go back and just take a look at this full game once again and not just the highlights of the game. But I love this game. It was absolute cinema from top to finish. Probably one of the top 10 games of the 2025-26 NHL season, and probably one of the top 10 games of the season in NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB, even though the MLB season hasn't started yet. But it's got to be one of the top 10 games across all those sports. One of the top 10 games of this NHL season, and one of the top 10 games across like NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB. I know we had a Super Bowl coming up on Sunday between the Patriots and the Seahawks. Fortunately, the Bears couldn't be in the Super Bowl. I would probably tune into that Super Bowl game if the Bears were in it, but unfortunately they're not. I'm not really a football guy. I just like watching. I did watch Chicago Bears when they were in the playoffs. That's why I got tuned into it. But when the Bears got knocked out by the Rams, I just stopped tuning into it, because, again, I'm not really that much into football. I just watched it because Chicago Bears were in the playoffs and they had a lot of hype around the team. I just tuned into a couple of games. But anyways, this was a unreal game. And speaking of the Patriots, the Bruins had coming into the Stadium Series, they were dressed as Patriots, like taking it all the way back to like 1776, and they had outfits and stuff for that. For the Lightning, they were dressed in football uniforms coming into the Stadium Series. So it was just an unreal game in Tampa. The design, everything that it had, like, it was just an unreal night. And like I said, I wish I could have been there in person for the Stadium Series games. But it was still good. Great watching it from home as well. But with the Stadium Series chaos and entertainment stuff out the way, the Brewers will be playing the Florida Panthers on Wednesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That game will air on TNT and HBO Max for you guys to watch. Last game for them before the Olympic break. The Lightning returned to Benchmark International Arena. I really hate it. They changed their name. I wish they kept it at Amalie Arena. But anyways, they returned back to their home rink, Benchmark International Arena, to take on the Buffalo Sabres on Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That game will air on Hulu and ESPN Plus. They'll actually be on ESPN Plus 2 times this week. That game against the Sabres on Tuesday, and then a home game against the Florida Panthers on Thursday, also coming on at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And that will be the final game before the Olympic break for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But now let's go on to the LA Kings and Carolina Hurricanes game. Sebastian Aho, he scores the overtime game-winning goal in the Hurricanes' 3-2 overtime win over the LA Kings on Sunday. Scored a minute and 25 seconds into overtime. 18th career overtime goal for him. He's tied with Sidney Crosby and Brad Marchand for the second most among all players since the 3-on-3 format was introduced in the 2015-16 season. Leon Draisaitl has more than those players with 20 career overtime goals. And with the win, Carolina improves to 34, 15, and 6 of the season. They extend their point streak to 8 games in the process, in which they are 6-0-2 during that span. Jordan Staal and Alexander Nishikin scored the other goals for the Hurricanes. Shane Gostisbehere had 2 assists to extend his point streak to 3 games, in which he has 6 points during the span. 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points during a 3-game point streak. Brandon Bussey, the bus train. He made 11 saves on 13 shots faced in net. And Brandon Bussey improves to 21-3-1 of the season with the Carolina Hurricanes. He records his 21st career win, in which he passes Andrew Hammond, who had 20 career wins, and Bill Durnan, who also had 20 career wins, for the most by a goaltender through his first 25 NHL games in the league. And for the LA Kings, Samuel Hellenius and Quentin Byfield scored for LA. Anton Forsberg made 31 saves on 34 shots faced in net. And the Kings end their 5-game road trip with a 3-1-1 record. And they dropped to 23-17-4 of the season. They return home to take on the Seattle Kraken on Wednesday at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time, which will be the first of a back-to-back set for them. They'll be in Vegas to take on the VGK Vegas Golden Knights on Thursday at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time, which will be the last game before the Olympic break for them. They'll return home to face the VGK Vegas Golden Knights for the start of a 6-game homestand on February 25th, which that will be a TNT game for you guys to watch. In the Hurricanes, they will play the Senators on Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. But now let's move on to the Anaheim Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights. The Anaheim Ducks hold off the Vegas Golden Knights with a 4-3 win at home on Sunday. And with the win, Anaheim improves to 29-23-3 of the season. They end their 2-game losing skid. And they sweep their season series against the Golden Knights for the first time in their franchise history, all coming in for the 3 victories. They won 4-3 back in overtime in Vegas on November 8th, and then 4-3 in overtime again at home on November 22nd, and now winning 4-3 in regulation at home on February the 1st. So first time in the Ducks franchise history that they swept the Golden Knights. Chris Kreider scores twice in the win. Ryan Poehling had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. And Carter Gauthier, who's the Flyers' most wanted, most hated player. Flyers fans hate him because he didn't want to play for Philadelphia. He didn't want to sign with the team. He went off to Anaheim. But Carter Gauthier, he scored in the win. Jacob Trouba and Troy Terry each had 2 assists for the Ducks. This was Troy Terry's first game back in the lineup. He missed the past 11 games because of a upper body injury. Lucas Dahlstad made 28 saves on 31 shots, faced the net. And Mighty Ducks star Kenan Thompson was in attendance for this game, by the way. I think this was on the Ducks' first or second goal of this game that they showed Kenan Thompson at the game. And for those who don't know Kenan Thompson, if you haven't seen the Mighty Ducks movies, Kenan Thompson played on Mighty Ducks 2 and 3. He played Russ Tyler in the movie. And he was most known for his knuckle puck shot in the movie. And Kenan Thompson was at this game between the Ducks and the Golden Knights. He also played on Kenan and Kel, All That, and he's on Saturday Night Live. He's a funny guy. He's a comedian, great guy to be around. So, and he was in attendance for this game between the Ducks and the Golden Knights. But yeah, he did play on Mighty Ducks 2 and 3, most known for his knuckle puck shot in the movie. For the Golden Knights, Mitch Marner, one of my favorite NHL players, Ivan Barbashev and Tomas Hertl scored for Vegas. Mark Stone had 2 assists in the game, while Aiden Hill made 19 saves on 22 shots faced the net. And the Golden Knights have lost 5 in a row. They're 0-3-2 during the span. They lost 7 in their last 8 games, which they are 1-5-2 during the span, which included a 3-2 loss to Seattle Kraken at home on Saturday. So they were playing a back-to-back set heading into this game on Sunday, and they dropped to 25-16-14 of the season. The Golden Knights return home for back-to-back home games against the Vancouver Canucks and the LA Kings. They will face the Canucks on Wednesday and then the LA Kings on Thursday. Both games coming on at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And the game against the LA Kings on Thursday will be the last game before the Olympic break for the Golden Knights. And then they will return back from the Olympic break on February 25th for the start of a 5-game road trip in LA against the Kings, which again, as I said when I was talking about the Kings and Hurricanes game, that will be a TNT game for you guys to watch. But now let's move on to some other NHL news. Barry Trotz steps down as the Nashville Predators general manager on Monday. There was multiple outlets, including ESPN and the Associated Press, reporting that Barry Trotz is stepping down from the general manager position. And I did see that Elliot Friedman had tweeted that out on Twitter. I still refuse to call it X, by the way. And then there will be a press conference with Barry Trotz, owner Bill Haslam, and CEO Sean Henry that is scheduled to take place later on today. I think it might be taking place now because I thought I saw a last alert saying that it will come out at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And I think it's going on now, but I'm not sure. Barry Trotz took over as general manager on July 1st of 2023. Succeeding over longtime Predators general manager and Hall of Famer David Poile. And prior to that, he had an extensive NHL coaching career, which included a Stanley Cup win with the Washington Capitals back in 2018. And I think he coached the Nashville Predators before he coached the Capitals. He also coached the Islanders in his coaching career. But that was after the Stanley Cup win with the Washington Capitals. He went over to the Islanders. But I think before he coached those two teams, he was the coach of the Nashville Predators. I think when the Predators first entered the league, Barry Trotz was their first head coach in franchise history. But now he's going to be stepping down as the Predators general manager. Upon becoming general manager for them, Barry Trotz fired head coach John Hines, who is currently the head coach of the Minnesota Wild, and hired Andrew Burnett, which, fun fact, he scored the first goal for the Nashville Predators in their franchise history. And during Andrew Burnett's, I think this is his third season with the Predators, correct me if I'm wrong, as head coach for them, obviously. He had a 102, 97, and 19 record in his third season, I believe, either his third or fourth season with the Predators as their head coach. And Barry Trotz, back in the 2024 offseason, he signed Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea to major contract deals, which blew up the whole entire hockey world during that time. We thought the Predators were going to be going to the Stanley Cup after that, but they actually finished 30, 44, and 8 last season, one of the team's worst records in years. And so far this season, they have become more competitive and more of a different team this season. So far, they're 25, 23, and 6 of the season with 56 points, 4 points out of a playoff spot, 5th in the Central Division. And this was a shocking decision that I have seen so far. I didn't think Barry Trotz would be able to step down as the Predators general manager, considering where the Predators are in the standings. I thought maybe after the Predator season, I think maybe that decision should take place if it's up to him. But it's up to him if he wants to step down or not. I think this should have happened after the season, because the Predators are like I said, they're playing really good hockey of late. They're coming off a 4-3 win over the New York Islanders on Saturday, and they are, like I said, 4 points out of a playoff spot, 25, 23, and 6. So they're a little bit over 500. And at this point, before the Olympic break, Barry Trotz steps down as the general manager. So this was very shocking for me to see, and I'm pretty sure it shocked a lot of Predators fans as well, because I have a few friends who are Predators fans, and I'm pretty sure that they were shocked by this decision that Barry Trotz is stepping down as general manager. But the Predators, they're not playing bad. They're playing really good. They're a different team than last year, so I don't understand why would you step down as the general manager of the team. And going into the trade deadline, I thought the Predators, since they are this close to making the playoffs, I thought they would be buyers at the trade deadline. I know they might have questions with them either trading Steven Stamkos or Ryan O'Reilly, Jonathan Marchessault. I think that might be a couple of players who will be on the market at the trade deadline for the Predators, but we'll just have to see how everything will go. But like I said, this decision kind of shocked me. I did not expect this to happen, especially right now before the Olympic break and where the Predators are at, but it is what it is. Predators only have 3 games left before the Olympic break. They'll be at home today against the St. Louis Blues, and then they play another home game against the Wild on Wednesday, and then on Thursday they will be in Washington to take on the Capitals. So I think the decision for that, the press conference that is going on right now, I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll just have to see how everything will happen. I'll probably ask a couple of Predators fans what do they think of this decision for Barry Trotz to step down as general manager. Like I said, this was a shocking decision that I've seen. But I will be interested to hear from a Predators fan standpoint. So if you're a Predators fan, and if you don't like this decision, or maybe you did like the decision, maybe, I don't know, drop a comment down below. Let me know you guys' thoughts on this. Because like I said, I have a few friends that are Predators fans, and if you're a Predators fan too, I would like to hear your thoughts on this. I would like to hear from you guys' standpoint on what do you think of the decision. My thoughts on it was shocking. I didn't think this would happen. I don't think it needed to happen. I didn't think it would happen, and I didn't think it needed to happen, considering where the Predators are at in the standings. So, they're not playing bad. They're actually very solid this year. So, yeah. But taking a look at the NHL games on the slate for today, there's only 10 NHL games on the slate for today. Got the Buffalo Sabres taking on the 2-time Cup champion Florida Panthers at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then we got the Ottawa Senators taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then a Metropolitan Division showdown between Matthew Schaefer and the New York Islanders versus Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Pretty sure Alex Ovechkin had to enjoy that Wizards game that he was at. I did see him and his kids taking pictures with LeBron James, and then it was another picture of him and Trae Young, who's the new player on the Washington Wizards. And then I think it was a video where Luka Doncic almost fell on Alex Ovechkin, which Alex Ovechkin didn't allow that to happen. So he was at the Lakers game. I mean, not the Lakers game, the Wizards game. They were playing against the Lakers in Washington with his kids courtside. But now he's off the court, back to the rink, taking on Matthew Schaefer and the New York Islanders at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then we got the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Minnesota Wild at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. This game will air on Amazon Prime to my Canadian friends up north. And then we got a Central Division showdown between the St. Louis Blues and the Nashville Predators at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And then a Western Conference showdown between the San Jose Sharks and the Chicago Blackhawks at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Macklin Celebrini versus Connor Bedard. 2 number 1 overall picks, 2 Vancouver boys going at it. So this should be a great game, and hopefully we get to see the rivalry between the Sharks and the Blackhawks with Macklin Celebrini versus Connor Bedard. Hopefully that develops into a rivalry later on in their careers. And then we got another Central Division showdown between the Winnipeg Jets and Dallas Stars at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. And then the Detroit Red Wings taking on the Colorado Avalanche at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. These two teams faced each other on Saturday in Detroit, which was a 5-0 shutout win for the Avalanche over the Red Wings. Red Wings looking for redemption on the road against the Avs. Could it be done? We'll just have to see in this game. These two teams had a historic rivalry back in the 1990s. It was from 1996 all the way to like 2002, 2003-ish. When these two teams were rivals at the time. So it started in the 1990s, and then it had the goalie fight between Patrick Roy and Mike Vernon, and these two teams were competing for Stanley Cups. Obviously, the Avalanche winning in 1996, and then the Red Wings back-to-back in 1997 and 1998. So still great to watch these two teams go at it. They might not be rivals anymore or as much like they were in the 1990s. But it's still interesting to see these two teams going at it. And then we got the Vancouver Canucks taking on the Utah Mammoth at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And then we got the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Calgary Flames at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. And also, Tuesday and Thursday, we'll be putting out episodes of the Hockey Talk TG Podcast. Thursday will be the last day for the Olympic break. And then from February 6th to February 10th, there will be no NHL games because the NHL freeze thing and the Olympics going on. Next Tuesday, we will be putting out an episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. And we'll be previewing the NHL Olympics during that time. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, I'll say all this again probably on Thursday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG Podcast. So stay tuned for that. We've got another 40-plus minute episode done today. Lots of NHL news to talk that I discussed in this episode for today. So that's why it was like 40-plus minutes. But we'll try to keep it at 30 minutes because this podcast usually is 30 minutes long and not 40-plus minutes long. But yeah, make sure to follow the Hockey Talk TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Episodes coming out every Tuesday and Thursday, 1 o'clock p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Time, then 2 o'clock p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But just wanted to do an episode for Monday so I can talk about the NHL Stadium Series with you guys and other NHL news as well. Both of you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep God first as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys on Tuesday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Take care.